Hey there fellow React enthusiasts, welcome back to my channel where I make coding fun and simple. Today we are diving into the wonderful world of React Router version 6. Trust me, it's like Google Maps for your React application, but without the traffic jams. So let's buckle up and get started. Imagine your app is like this toy car. Without a map, it's just wandering aimlessly. That's where React Routers comes in. It is our map that helps our app navigate between different pages smoothly. Pretty cool, right? Alright, let's break it down. React Router, it is a standard library for routing in React, and you have to install it in your application. It enables the navigation among the views or UIs of various components in your application. Allow changing the browser URL and keep the UI in sync with the new URL. In simple terms, it makes our single-page application feel like a multi-page app, but no more back button frustration for users. So what is React Router for then? It is for managing the different routes in your application. Think of it as a super efficient traffic cop, directing users to the right pages without any hassle. Whether it's going from a home page to a blog post or jump into a user profile, React Router handles it all for you. Now, let's talk about how we can set it up. For today's demo, we are going to use our Create React app as a base for our application. So I will start from the scratch so you can follow up with me. Okay, and for each part of this video, I will be pushing the code to GitHub and I'll add the link in description so you can download it in your machine and follow up with me as well. So I will go first to my terminal. I have a built-in terminal with my Visual Studio Code. If you don't use Visual Studio Code, just use the built-in terminal in your machine. So I'll go just run my command and I'll call this one, I'll create an app about posts and reviews. Okay, so I'll just call posts and hit enter. Okay, now I got my package installed. I'll just follow the instructions. So cd post, which is post the one I created, the new folder, then npm start. Okay, so cd post and npm start, and that should run my application on my local host. And after that's done, that's what we get. So the default boilerplate of React. So we'll get rid of all of this as we don't need it. But let's first get started and add the package for the router as well. Let's go back here to our terminal. I will skip my div command and let's run the script to install the React router. I'm using npm, so I'm doing npm install react router DOM. Okay, so let's hit enter. And because the current version of this recording is version 6, that will be the one installed. So if I go back to our package.json, and if we scroll there, you'll see the React Router DOM current version is 6.23.1. That's it. So React Router now is installed in your app and it's ready to be used. Piece of cake, nothing difficult, okay? Now, list a few other setup that we need. First thing, you need to use import browse router and routes in the source of your project, okay? So our project source file at the moment, if you go to source, and it will be index.js, okay? Because we use the create react app boilerplate, that is the top parent component for our application, okay? So first thing we have to do is import browser router from react router DOM. And what we'll do is that we'll go to the top level of application. So our top level currently is app, so we'll go and wrap the app, okay? So I'll come here, I'll say browser router. So that's my component I imported, and I'll wrap all my application within that browse router. So all what we have done now is just make our browse routing available to all our application. Now let's start creating our first route. But before that, I did some cleanup so we can get started with our project. And you can find the startup for this section in the new branch is section 1 route setup. And I'll keep the link for you in the description of this video as well. So all what I have done is that in app.js, I removed that default spinner icon there and text. And I added a header and a footer, okay, which should be common through all our applications, and that's why I put them in page or the parent component for our application. Okay, so here they are, and then between them we want all other pages to come in, like home page, post pages, comment sections, or whatever we want in there. Okay, now, how we can add these new pages? So, first thing, maybe let me explain you what is the difference between route and routes. Okay, so think of route as our magical doorway manager. It stands by the entrance and says, "Hey, you wanna go to the living room, the kitchen, or the bathroom?" It is in charge of knowing where all the magic doors or our routes are. Okay. Now, each route is one of those magic doors. When you walk through a route, you end up in a new place in our application. It's like Narnia, but without the talking lions. So each route has two special things for it, something called path and elements. Okay, now let's create our first route, which will take us to the home page. So I created a component here called home, and all it has is just a title and some dummy description here. Okay, so I want now when anyone land on the main domain or any domain with just a slash, I want to display that homepage content, which you can see now is not displaying for me. Okay, so we go back to our app.js, and first thing we need to import route and routes from React DOM. Okay, so I'll go to top or say import routes and routes from React router DOM. Okay, so that's the first thing. Now, second thing is that we need to do the setup for us. Okay, so first thing will be the routes, which is our doorway manager, okay, which watch for us all the doors which are our routes. Then inside our routes, we will define our routes that we need, okay. So first we said we need one for the home page, so I'll create a route for a home page, and we said it expect two properties: path, which is the path that should be handled in our URL, and then the elements, which will define which component should render when you are in that path. So path, and I'll say I want, for example, the initial, okay, whatever the main domain I have. And then the element, I wanted to render my home component, okay, we shall import it from home. Let's save this. And you can see this is complaining, and that's because I didn't close my route elements. So let's save again. And there we go. Very easy, very simple, okay? Now what happens if you remove this slash here? Okay, let's click save, and then very hard refresh. This is still working. If you do this, this is also still working, okay? So either you keep your path empty or you put the slash. That's mean it is your main domain, okay? Now, I'll just put the slash for now. And then the next route we want to create is, or the new page we want to create is the post page, okay? The page will render the list of the posts for me, okay? So same thing, I'll do route, okay? And I'll say path equal, and my new path, again, you can define any path that suits you, but of course not which makes sense. I will call it slash post, okay? So anyone goes to localhost slash post. So if I do it now, nothing is there, okay? I just see my head and footer, but nothing is there. So I want to handle that. So when someone goes to the post slash post, I want to render my component which have the list of my posts, and I created a component right here called posts. Okay, and if you look at it, it's very simple, basic React. It's not refactored anything because this is a video for only React router and for beginners. Okay, so very simple. All what we're doing is just fetching a list of the posts from JSON placeholder. Okay, and we are rendering those lists of the posts. Now let's go back here and let's try to render my posts, and I'll import it from my component slash organisms slash post, and then I'll close my router or my route. And actually here I did a spelling mistake. The route should be capital. Now click save, and there we go. Okay, so you can see as soon I save my page, the slash post, it pick up that this route exists and it's handled for my application, and then to render for me all the list of the posts I have. Okay, now if I go back to home, for example, I remove slash post, I can have still my home here. Okay, I do slash post, I get my post back. Now, one more thing is that these routes now you can see that displaying between our header and our footer. Okay, and if you go home, it's same thing. If you go back home, our home content is displayed between our header and our footer. And the reason why is that because in our app.js, which is the source of the main parent component of our application, we put our routes, okay, between our header and footer. If you move them from here, if you take all of it and put it on top of the header, I suppose you expect what will happen, right? So everything will show up on top of my header, okay? If I do post, same thing as well. Okay, so just be careful when you're doing your routings. Wherever you position them in your UI or in your code, it will exactly render like that in your UI as well. Okay, so for me, my expectation for this demo is that all my routes, I want them to be between my header and my footer, so I'll just keep them right here. Let's see how we can handle navigation. And so now, if I want to navigate between the home page and the posts page, I have to go manually in my URL and type it there. Okay, if I want to go home, I have to remove slash post. If I want to go back to posts, I have to go manually and write slash post. Adding to that, whenever I do this, my whole page reload. Okay, and those things you don't want them to happen in your React application. It's not a normal website. In your React application, usually you avoid any hard loading, okay, and that's what they call it, a single app application. A reason why is that whenever you trigger any hard reloading through the life of your application, any stored data in your state, local state, or your management state will be lost, okay, which I don't think those behaviors you want them to be happening. Now, how we can solve this issue? So if you come from normal HTML background, you'll say, okay, we need to add navigations and you should have anchor tags, and those anchor tags should click them and they take us to the pages. Okay, now let's try this and I'll explain you the issue with that. Okay, I had some code here and commented, and all what it is just two anchor tags here, one for home, okay, some classes from Taiwan CSS to style it, but main things that anchor tag, they have this one's for home, so only slash. The second one is an anchor tag with have posting to slash post. Okay, so same the path we defined here. Okay, so I'll save this. Then that's my header is showing there, which is great. Now let me show you the problem, what will happen. If I click home, you'll see that my whole page reloads. I'll click home, you can see. So I'm navigated successfully to my home page, but my application is full reloading behind the scene. Okay, same thing will happen as well if I click on the post. I'll go click post and just keep eye on the top of the screen. You see that? So as I click my post again, successfully I was navigated to the post screen, but my whole screen is get reloaded. Now, just imagine like you're a wizard, and maybe you're just a regular person, right? But who hates this unnecessary page reloads, okay? Now, the E tag is like this teleportation spell that goes poof, and you're on a new page, but oh no, it reloads the entire universe. Everything has to be reloaded from scratch. And we are talking about a waste of magic here, right? Now, we have something that can come in and save us. And there's something called link component in React's router. It's like a smooth, enchanted portal. No poof, and definitely no reloading the whole universe. It just gently guides you to where you need to go without all this chaos. Okay? Now, let me demonstrate this for you. First, you have to import link from React DOM, okay? Then we just go here, I'll remove these anchor tags and I'll put my link component, same here as well. Now this link component, it behaves behind the scene as an anchor tag, but with a magic, and instead of this ref, I will use the property to, okay? So to, and then whatever path you want. Same here as well, I'll replace this anchor tag with link, and the property ref will be replaced by 2. Okay, so basically you're saying this link will take me to this route here. Okay, let's save, and we can just go and test it now. Click home and keep eye on the top of your browser. Okay, click home. See, I was successfully navigated to my home screen, but without reloading my whole universe. Okay, same thing will happen when I click post. When I click post, again, same thing. I'm successfully landed on my post screen, but without to hard reload on my universe as well. And that is the expected behavior we want to see in the single app applications. Okay, now if I go and inspect this, you can see behind the scene they are actually anchor tag, but with some magic going behind the scene. So you can behave like you're a wizard who can do magic, okay? But all these tools are given to you. You just have to know when to use them and how to use them properly without any issues. Now, these anchor tags, you can see there are this have as well here that we used before, okay? And it's replaced with the path we have given in the to keyword property here, okay? So you don't need to understand all this here. All what you know is how to use this link, which is very simple and very easy. But sometimes it's good to know what's going on actually behind the scene. Now, before we move on to more features of React Router DOM, let's first run some unit tests to make sure whatever we write until now it's working as expected, which is this basic routing we created in our app.js. So let's go back to app.test. So until now I still have the first test which came with my boilerplate, which definitely will fail because we refactor this page and we write a new code. So all what I will do, I'll just remove this block, and I got some things imported from me from the testing library, which I will need for testing. And of course, my component that I need for testing, also I need to import it. Now, one more things or two more things we have to import. First thing, as we're using React Router, we need to import this browser router as well. Okay, so we can wrap our components within this browser router. The other thing we need to import is something called user event, which help us to manipulate, to simulate the click on our link button. Okay, so you import user event from testing library slash user event. Okay, now we imported all things we need. Let's start our test, and let's start with describe method. So describe method just help me to add a top level description, which helped me when I'm running so many files of tests to know that test will belong to what. So usually I just put the top name of the component. So I'll say app component, and then of course second argument will be an add-on function, and then I can write my test here. So test. And first I want to test is that my component is rendering properly, okay? And maybe the way I will do it is just check that I can find, for example, my awesome post in my render in the test. So expect no render my heading title. And that will help me just to make sure that my component is running properly before I start to run more complex tests, okay? So I write the description of my test. Now I need to mock the render of my component for testing. So we use the render method that we imported from test React, from testing library slash React. So render, and I will just wrap my component first in the browser router that we imported, browser router. And then inside I will have my component, which is app. Now I mock the render, I want to simulate the elements of or mock the elements I want to find, okay? So I want to find this element, which is a text. So there is a method I can use which calls get by text. So I'm using the screen that I imported also from testing library, which have access to the mock render I did for my components. So I'm saying screen and find me an element by text and my awesome post, same as I have right there. Okay, so if find mock the element for me, then see if that element exists in my document. Okay, so expect my title element to be in document. Now let's save this. Open your terminal. So I've opened a built-in terminal for me in my Visual Studio Code. I already have the command running. I'll stop it, and I'll show you if you have the using if you're using different boilerplate. Okay, so in your package.json, in the scripts you have a test script. Okay, so for me its name is test. Some places may have different names, so I'll just do npm and my script name, which is test. Okay, hit enter, and that should run the test for me. So I'll just wait for, so initial run usually takes a little bit of time to run all the scripts behind the scene. And there we go to find for me one test file. And there we go. And it says it failed. Okay. I did a silly mistake. So basically this block here, I write it outside of my test function. So it should be right there. Okay. So let's run that again. And there we go, and it's passed successfully. Now my computer's running properly. Now let's run another test where I can see if my links, okay, are existing in my app components. So how we can do that is also very simple and very straightforward. So I'll just come here and create a new test. And all that I'm saying is that I want to check that my renders home post links successful. So again, you mock the render of your components and make sure your components is wrapped with browser router. And then you go and try to access your screen and try to find the elements by role, okay? If you remember the link, okay, component behind the scene, it is an anchor tag, okay? An anchor tag, you can find it by a role link in React testing library. So I'm saying, go to my screen, access it, find an element by role link, which have the name home, okay, which is right there. And same for the second link, go find for me by role a link with name of post, okay. So that's all what I have done there. Then I'm saying, okay, check that these links exist in my document, okay. So I hope this is very straightforward. Let me save the file. And that's working also as expected. Now I know my links exist. My second test is to check when I click each one of them that they are navigating me to the proper screen. Okay, so let's do for the home link first. So I'll come here again, create a new test. I want to navigate to home page when I click on the link. Okay, again same thing. You have to mock the render of your component, make sure your component is wrapped within browser router, otherwise this will not work. And then try to find your element again by role of link, and the name of it should be home. Okay, so you're trying to click the home link button. Okay, then right here in the line 37, all we are doing is just simulating the click on that button. Like if you go by yourself on the browser and click it. When that's finished, I want to go to my page, and if you remember, our home have this text. So I'll try to find some elements by text. I'll just try to find this part, okay? So you have different text, and you'll try to find that text that you have in your local machine, okay? Now, I'm saying find for me in my screen by text, welcome to the React Router version 6. When that is done, now run my test, the actual test. I'm expecting that this element should be in my document, okay, which means my clicking on the link button is successful. Now let's save this, and that passed as well. So we have 3 tests in total and they're all passing. Now the next one is to do the same thing but for the post link, okay? Now this is a little bit different, but it's almost same thing as well, okay? So again, you're mocking the render, you're finding your link button by role, and it have posts as a name, okay? Then you can see in line 49, we had to add this wait for, okay? And this wait for, I have to import it from my React testing library, okay? Oops, let's do with wait for. And what this wait for is doing is that when we find the link, it will do for me is that when I click assimilate, I click on the button, it will wait for whatever events will come also after clicking that button. If you can remember the post screen, if I go to my code, so I'll go to post, we have some API called getting triggered here, which we have to wait for it and to render data for us, okay? Which can slow down your component a little bit, okay? Which means this page will not be immediately available after you click that link button. So the wait for what we'll do is that we'll wait for whatever things will happen after clicking this button. When that's completed, then try to find this element in the screen and make sure that my element exists in the document. Okay? If you don't do this wait for, your test will not be successful for this one, the final one. Now let's click save. And there we go. Your tests are passing all of them successfully. Now let's talk about nested routing and see how we can create and handle nested routing in our React application. And what I mean with nested routing, for example, let's say I have a post, which I list the post here in one page. Then what I want is whenever I click a post, I want to see the post details at the bottom of my screen, okay? Which also be under a new route called post/post details. Now, if I do like this, because we didn't create that route, you just have a blank page, okay? But that's not the thing I'm expecting. What I'm expecting is that whenever I enter post details, I want to be in my page and see some details down here. Now, how we can handle this? I'll start simple and then we start fixing things as we go. Maybe the first impression will come to you as we are learning our routing is that you just go like this and do route, okay? And then path, and then we say it is post/post details. Okay, then, oops, my spelling is wrong here. And then you'll have your element. And for now, just hard our code an element here, which is an H1. I'll say my details goes here. Okay, then I'll close my route. And this one should be capital R. Save. And there we go. So we have post. And if I go to this new route I created, oops, let me fix this. Move all that, post details. Hit enter. I can see now that I'm accessing my details goes here, okay? Which is great, but it's not what I wanted, okay? What I want is that my details goes here goes beneath my list of my components. And also, one more thing is that this is a hard-coded one, okay? And later on to be these things dynamic related to the post. And that's why we need this nested routing. Now, let's start fixing this. I'll cut this and I'll come to my post because this one will be a child or a nested route of this one. So I'll remove the self-closing route, okay? And I will need an opening actually and closing uh, element for this route. Then I will go inside here and then I'll paste the route I created before. Now, great thing about this is that because this route is a nested route of this one or child route of this one, I don't need to go and hard code this post slash. By default, this route will have a relative route which is post, okay, in our case now. So I can just go and remove this. Click save. Now, I'll reload this, but you can see this is still not working, and that's because we are missing one tiny little bit more step. We need to go inside our post, which is the parent route, and then we need to import a component called outlet, okay, from React router. Import outlet from React router DOM, okay? And this one basically what we'll do, if you have any child routes of this component, that's the one we'll render it for you. Then you can go in your UI and edit wherever you want. I want it to be after my list of posts, so I'll come just right here and add this component. If you want it before, you just come before your list and edit that. So wherever you position this, that's where your child route will be visible to the users. Now let's click save. And there you go, param, it's working. So if I remove post details, gone. If I do slash post details, it comes back right there for you. Okay. Now we saw how we can create our nested rows. So we want to see now how we can make this one dynamic. In the way is that whenever I click a post title, I want to see here the details for actual posts. Therefore, we need to make this nested row dynamic, um, rendering dynamically. So first thing we have to do is that make first our post clickable, and then we see how we can make actual this route dynamic. So first things first then, so let's go back to our post component, and we have here at the moment we are just using a div, okay? So I want to change this to use a link component, same thing we have done for our app.js when we use the link component here, okay? Now, of course, we have to import that link component from React Router DOM. And then we can go here and replace the div with the link component. And then, of course, we need to add this property too. Okay, so which path we are going to use. And what I will do here is that we know the dynamic routes we want is this one, but still will have parent is post, then slash whatever the dynamic value. And the dynamic value will to be depend of your requirements, okay? Because I'm using JSON placeholder API, I'm using this post API call, and to get a post details, then it will be post slash one. And this one, it is the ID of my post. So if you remember, this is the response for our posts, okay, that we are rendering here. And each post have an ID, okay? And if I want to get one post details, only one, then all what I have to do is that call the API slash post slash one. So I want my route, my dynamic route to look the same as my API endpoint, just for consistency and so I can easily access these parameters when I need them, okay? Now, that's mean in my link here, I want to have my ID passed in so I can read it in my nested route later. We should see how we can do that. Now, what I will do is I will try to access my post.id. And you will see here that I'm not trying to do post slash then my post ID. Reason why again, because my post is already in the route of post, and by default that will pick up as the parent of this link right here. Okay, let's click save. And I got some error here, I can see here down, and reason why is that I forgot to update the closing tag to use the link component. Let's click save, that looks happy. Now let's inspect it. And you can see here, now it's the anchor tag is not div anymore, and also the ref is slash post slash one. If I go and check the second one, it will be slash post slash two, okay? Which means this is working as expected for me. Now, even if I click them, nothing will happen because this route is not handled. If you remember, until now, we still have this hard-coded post details route, so only that one will work here, okay? So if I do post details, I will see my details goes here. But anything else, nothing will work. And the reason why, because this is not a dynamic route yet. Okay, we should do it now. Now, how we can do that? It's very simple, it's very easy. You just use column and then a variable name that you can name it anything you want. Just make sure it makes sense, okay? And it's easy for you to understand what is for when you're reading your code. So I'll call it for me now, post ID, because I know I'll be passing my post IDs as the nested rows. But if you're using a post name or I don't know something else, feel free to change the variable name as it suits you the best. So I'm keeping the post ID here. I'll click save. And now this route is dynamic. And you can see as soon as I save it, my browser refresh. And even though I have no slash 2, I can see my details goes here. Now, if I click any of these, still I can see it there. Even if I do that post details we had before, even that one will still work. So now any nested route directly under the post will give me this one back. Okay, now let's see how we make this post details component dynamic and really read now the actual parameter we are passing here, which is the dynamic route, read it and use it to make an API call to give us the actual post call details so we can display the details related to that post. So what I have done before we are ahead coding only H1 here, so I create actually a component which is called post details, okay, and pass it here. And the post details always have now nothing because we have to code it together. And all what we have to do is find a way on how we can read this parameter here and use it to pass it dynamically to this API endpoint here. Okay, pass it right there so we can get API call for each and every one. Lucky for us, React Router make this very easy for us and give us in hook ready for us to use whenever we want. So this hook is called useParam. So import, and please, if you don't know what are React hooks, then feel free to watch my full tutorials on React hooks in React. And React hooks, in simple and quick recap, it just has special functions in React that can help you to do some amazing things very quickly. Okay? And there's certain rules around them. One of them is that these hooks, you can't use them in class components. You only can use them in functional components. So we have functional components, so we can use it, use params. So we have to import it from React Router DOM. Okay. Next thing is that we have to use this like we said inside of functional component, not outside. So what I will do, I will try to access the parameter here. Okay. And the parameter name will be same one we defined right there. Okay. So just copy this one, go here or say const object. I want to access the post ID and I will use param. So use param hook will give me that object back. Okay. Now when I have my post ID, all what I can do is just copy it and pass it here to my API. Okay. And now we can uncomment this. So all what we are doing is just displaying again the post.title and the post.body. And if you're again wondering where that's coming from, it's from our API here. So when you call this API endpoint, you'll get an object back which have title and body as well. Let's save this, go back to our application, and we can see here it's still complaining. And reason why is that the first time when your app runs, your object here is null. Okay, so it says reading title of null, it's not possible. So let's add a condition here. I say when post exists, and then just copy this. Okay, so all I'm saying is that run this code when the post is not undefined or null or something. Okay, only when it have values then run. So you can see here, I have my post title and also I have this description. And if you compare these two, it's same as the first one because in my route is /1, so the first post with ID 1. Now let's try the other post, the second one. Click this one and you see it's not changing. Okay, and the reason why is that a simple rule which is not related to React Router, it's more to React hooks in React. So the rule of use effect, so this use effect, because we pass an empty array, it's only run the first time this component is mounted. Okay, it will not run the other time it's remount again, no, re-rendered again. Okay, so we have to tell it that whenever this post ID changes, please run the use effect for me. So I have to pass this one as a dependency in the dependency arrays. So click save. Now as I did it, I can see number 3, it's coming. If I go number 2, it's also coming. Again, go other one, it's also coming. Okay, so that's how you can handle the dynamic routings and how you can access the parameters in your route in React. It's really easy and very simple and very straightforward.